Yoshi's Island was an amazing game for the Super Nintendo, and honestly one of the best Nintendo games ever made. With a very fun and inviting crayon art style, the tight and fun challenging platforming, and the phenomenal soundtrack makes this one of the most recognizable Nintendo games. And all of that praise was definitely deserved, as this is still a timeless classic, and it gave Yoshi a big name in a big series throughout from the NES to the Nintendo Switch. However, despite that, they never really matched the heights for the original game. Not to say Yoshi had nothing but bad games, I enjoyed a couple of the entries. Like, I really enjoyed Yoshi's Island DS, so it's a pretty good follow-up, and I do have a lot of great nostalgia for that game. Yoshi's Crafted World was a pretty good time, a solid little platform for the Nintendo Switch. And Yoshi's New Island is honestly a good game as long as you have people not screaming in your ear and inserting that generic theme song that you always hear when someone talks about Yoshi New Island. However, among all the Yoshi games, there was at least one of them that could compete with Yoshi's Island in terms of quality, production value, and everything. And that game so happens to be Yoshi's Woolly World. Now, rather than trying to shake things up drastically for Yoshi, this game tries to modernize the original gameplay style of Yoshi's Island to a new generation, with the biggest change going from a original hand-drawn style to a handcrafted one. Which leads to this game not only being a really good Wii U game, but really one of the best Yoshi games ever made. However, despite this, the game doesn't really get talked about a whole lot these days, mostly because it's, well, on the Wii U. And not just that, but even when most of the games got re-released on the Nintendo Switch, Yoshi sadly was left behind, with the only port getting on the 3DS, but it released on the near end of the 3DS's life. So I thought why not, since I was getting a little nostalgic for this game, to replay it for the first time in a while and talk about why this is one of my favorite games of all time. As I have a lot of memories with this game, as this is one of the first times I've ever heard of an upcoming game getting showcased. If I remember correctly, I was just heading home from school that day, and I went on the computer and the first things I saw was a video from Game Explain called Yarn Yoshi Wii U. And let's just say I got very excited over this because when I was young, I thought Yoshi was literally the greatest character I ever made. I really adored this little grinding dino dude, even to this very day. Funny enough, during the hype for Smash Wii U, the reveal I got most hyped for wasn't Cloud, it wasn't Mega Man or Pac-Man, but it was freaking Yoshi, a character that's been in the game since the N64 days. But yeah, I remember constantly keeping up with the Nintendo news, rewatching, hoping to see more news on this new Yoshi game, but it never really came around for a while, but I didn't really mind it too much as Yoshi's New Island was also coming on the way, and that was a pretty good fixation for me for a while. And after I graduated 4th grade and enjoyed that summer vacation, I woke up one day seeing so much Nintendo news on the internet, and they finally showcased more news on that Yoshi game I was talking about with the new title of Yoshi's Woolly World, and it blew my freaking mind when I was little. And what's also very surprising for me was the drastic change in style. As in the original footage, it showcased similar style to Kirby's Epic Yarn, where Yoshi was pretty much a yarn outline, but here Yoshi is fully 3D and very fuzzy and cutesy. And I was definitely looking forward to this game. I didn't even care that I had to wait an entire year just to play it, although the one thing that did bother me was the regional releases, as Japan and Europe got the game in summer of 2015, while we in the US had to wait until the holiday season. But once I finally got this game alongside with Super Mario Maker, those two were pretty much the games I played for the rest of the Wii U's lifespan, as I was pretty much obsessed with playing through Yoshi's Woolly World, being at all with the art style and music, and trying to 100% it throughout. I even picked up the Nintendo 3DS release of the game a few years later. However, it didn't include that Poochie Amiibo, which is kind of a shame because look how cute it is. But honestly, if I did, it would have been too expensive. Hey, remember when they were promoting this game, Nintendo had those hilariously bad commercials where the narrator were saying,
Woshi, it's a double Yoshi explosion.
Goodfeel is the developer of Yoshi's Woolly World, and they also made the next Yoshi game after this. They also created Wario Land Shake It, and most recently they were the developers of Princess Peach Showtime. So we're in pretty good hands when it comes to the quality of this game. So with everything out of the way, let's get started. So the game starts with the Yoshis hanging out across the Craft Island, a small little island area that is pretty much the center of the Woolly World, where suddenly Kamek appears, needing yarn to power up Big Bowser's plan to build a new castle, which means that he decided to commit dismemberment and turn all the Yoshis into small pieces of yarn. The last two Yoshis tried to intervene, but they end up putting a hole in Kamek's bag, which means that the yarns are now scattered across the land. And so it's up to Yoshi to go across the land collecting all the yarn and try to stop Kamek and save all the Yoshis. The story, by all means, is a very simple Nintendo story. All I've got to say is that thank God all the characters in this game are made of yarn, because if they weren't, this would have been an immediate M rating. But anyway, so for the gameplay. In Yoshi's Woolly World, the best way to describe it, as I mentioned earlier, is a modernized version of Yoshi's Island, with a lot of the attributes for that game coming back here, but with a modern twist. The controls for Yoshi are basically the same from the original game, but a bit more snappy, and if you're using the Wii Remote sideways, you can use tilt controls, which honestly fits really natural with egg throwing. Or should I say yarn throwing, because in this game you're throwing yarn balls instead, but they pretty much work exactly like egg throwing, but with some differences. But to make things easier, I'm just going to call the yarn balls eggs. So throughout the game, you'll find various areas where it has a wireframe, and you use the eggs to throw it to fill in the blank. That way you can access certain things like a little present or warp pipes. This game is filled with a brim with leveled ideas that is taking advantage of the yarn world. Like for example, throughout the game you'll find these little stray strings where if Yoshi eats it, he gobbles it up like spaghetti where he unravels the world, leading to a secret passage. I remember this one level where Yoshi is grabbing onto a giant curtain as he travels across this land trying to go onto multiple different curtains and try to keep up the pace like he's climbing on a vine or something. They even turn something like a Velcro into an interesting level where you're pretty much climbing on walls similar to Donkey Kong Country Returns. And they even try to refine past elements from Yoshi games like the transformation sections. And these are probably the best transformations Yoshi has ever gotten since Yoshi's Island. Instead of trying to retread old grounds from the previous games, the transformations this time are brand new and they are pretty unique throughout. And honestly, I think I prefer the transformations here compared to the original one, because these feel a lot more fast-paced and very fun to go through. Like, we have Yoshi turning into an umbrella for the first one. It sounds a little bit stupid, but it's honestly really fun just to try to glide your way through the levels. Yoshi can transform into a freaking motorcycle, and that is really cool. You can even turn Yoshi into a little mermaid as he swims across the sea. You know, if I had a nickel every time Goodfield turned a Mario character into a mermaid, I would have too, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
It's a double Yoshi explosion!
This game is just filled with the brim with really good levels in this game that really respects the original Yoshi's Island game without feeling too much like a retread. Such as the bosses in this game, as they are completely new and original. Nothing really too mind-blowing, they're pretty much what you expect from a Yoshi boss, basically a regular enemy turning big. Although I feel like the weakest ones were probably the mid-bosses because there's only 2 of them that they keep reusing throughout the game. But at the very least, the actual main bosses in the game are very unique with one another. They even do cool little callbacks with the Piranha Plant boss fight where, in the original game, you can actually kill them before the boss fight hits. Which was honestly pretty funny back then, and they even do a little callback there, but unlike that game, you can't skip the boss fight if you do this. But it's still a fun little callback to the original secret from Yoshi's Island. And as for the difficulty, well, it's kind of more on the easy side. I'll just say this up front. Yoshi's Woolly World is a lot easier than Island. Most of the bosses in this game kind of last less than a minute, especially with the mid-bosses. And the final boss itself is probably the most typical Yoshi boss you could ever think of in a game. I don't understand why these Yoshi games constantly keep reusing the giant baby Bowser boss fight. Like, it literally peaked in the original game, there's nothing to top that. But luckily, if you find this game a bit too easy, you can go and change something in the difficulty option. And with this, you can make the game even easier than before, which essentially gives Yoshi wings and let him hover indefinitely. But on a more serious note, if you want to add a bit more challenge, then there's 2 I can suggest, which is 1, try and not use the badges. These were introduced in this game where it pretty much boosted up a certain moveset from Yoshi. I mostly just used it getting Poochie in every level because, look at him. But if you really want a true challenge, then I recommend trying to 100% Yoshi's Woolly World, because just like most Yoshi games, this is where the real challenge comes in, as some of these could be very devilishly hidden. And if you're familiar with Yoshi's Island, you're probably going to be familiar with some of these collectibles we find throughout the game. The Happy Flowers return where they work exactly the same as the previous games, where there's about 5 in each level, and landing on the flower during a ring goal will lead you to a bonus round. This time being is that you need to collect a bunch of fruit as you can, and the more you get, the more beads you'll get, which is pretty much the currency in this game. And if you get all the flowers at each roll, you'll unlock a special bonus level as well. The second main collectibles are the stamp patches, which are basically the same thing as the red coins from Island, where there's 20 of them each level, and they'll reward you with various stamps that you can use for Miiverse. But since that place has been shut down for nearly 7 years now, these are pretty much useless. Oh my god, it's been 7 years already? Another thing that you need to do to complete this game is to have Yoshi at full health at the end of every level. But in Yoshi's Island, the health was originally just a timer for you, where you need to get Baby Mario back before the timer runs out, but in Yoshi's Woolly World, it's pretty much just a more traditional health bar. And lastly, we have the Wonder World, which are the pieces of the Yoshis that were taken apart. Collect all 5 of them in each of the levels, and you'll be able to restore Yoshi and be able to play as them. There are so many different patterned Yoshis in this game, it is honestly very nuts. And honestly, I say it's worth trying to get all of these because it's very interesting seeing what the next Yoshi is going to be like. And not just that, but also you can unlock even more Yoshi skins through the amiibos. As this released during the early days of the amiibo, where Nintendo pretty much used them in most of their games, and in this game, if you tap a certain amiibo, Yoshi will turn into that kind of character. Like if you scan a Mario amiibo, you'll have a Mario-themed Yoshi. Even worse with the certain third-party amiibos, like with the Sonic amiibo, so basically you can have a Sonic Yoshi in the game. And as for something like a regular Yoshi amiibo, well with this, he turns into pretty much a yarnless Yoshi. I don't know how to describe it, it looks more in line like the regular Yoshi, but without the yarn texture, but it just looks a bit weird. But this is just with the regular Yoshi amiibo, because with this game, they also released these Yarn Yoshi amiibos, and they are probably the cutest thing that Nintendo has done. I mean, look at them, they're pretty much these tiny little plushie amiibos. All they do in the game is allowing you to have a little duplicate similar to the Double Cherry in Mario 3D World, but look at them! They also included this giant-ass Yoshi amiibo, which is probably the biggest amiibo Nintendo has ever released. It only does the same thing as the Yarn Yoshi amiibos, but look at it! Which leads to me the presentation of this game. And based on the footage I can show you, this game looks freaking amazing for the Wii U. Honestly, the best looking game on the console in my opinion. Sure, you can make some arguments like with Mario Kart 8 or Donkey Kong Country, but I just really love the creative freedom they all had in this lively craftsmanship world. I really love the character designs in this game. Yoshi's already known to be a really cute character, but this game made him even cuter than before. Like, look at Poochie! Look at Poochie! He's so cute! Just look how happy he is when he gives you a collectible, just And I also like how some of the enemies are made out of certain materials, like the Shy Guys for example is made out of yarn, but their mask is made out of like these little button things. And going back to Yoshi, I really love how animated he is in this game. I love how his body constantly morphs depending on what move he's doing. Like if Yoshi starts running, his legs turn into little wheelies, and if he does his trademark flutter jump, he turns into a little propeller. And it's just not the characters too, but the whole environment really nails the whole Woolly World feel to it. And the music in this game is freaking phenomenal. It really has this very relaxing, upbeat vibe to it. You can tell you're gonna have something really special when you open up the game itself. And that's what I can describe Yoshi's Woolly World, it's just something very special that you have to play. It's kind of a shame that this game kind of got left behind throughout the years, especially concerning the fact that it's still on the Wii U only. But if you don't own a Wii U, then I recommend trying to get the 3DS version. So just releasing 1 month before the Nintendo Switch release, Yoshi's Woolly World got a Nintendo 3DS port. So just releasing 1 month before the Nintendo Switch release, Yoshi's Woolly World got a 3DS release entitled Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World. Guess Nintendo realized that their most marketable character in a Yoshi game besides Yoshi. And as for the game itself, well, it's Yoshi's Woolly World on Nintendo 3DS. And it's honestly very impressive they got the entire Wii U game fitting on the Nintendo 3DS, and at 60 FPS no less. And it still looks really good as well, not as good as the Wii U version because this is again the 3DS, but even then it still has that really good craftsmanship feel to it. The only massive change they did with the 3DS I can think of was with the world map, where in the Wii U version the whole area is this 3D explorable hub, but in the 3DS version it's relegated to a 2D map similar to Super Mario 3D Land. But besides that, everything from the Wii U version is still here, completely intact. And not just that, but they also added a bit more content to this game as well. They added more amiibo compatibility for this game, considering the fact that this released 2 years after the first game release, so there were more amiibos along the way. You're able to make your very own Yoshi pattern with this cool little customization chart thing. They added a brand new game mode to this game called Poochie Dash, which is pretty much just a simple auto runner where you play as Poochie. This really reminds me when they added the DDD Dash in Kirby's Extra Epic Yarn, which was another good feel port. They also introduced the Poochie Pods, which are little helpers to help you find certain secrets. But the biggest new addition to this game has to be the Yoshi Theater. In this place, you're able to watch about 31 stop-motion shorts that Nintendo made for this game. And oh my, these are probably the most wholesome things I've ever seen. This is literally the definition of cute. I highly recommend watching them, as you can watch them for free online. Honestly, if Yoshi's Woolly World ever got into the Switch ports, I hope to God they keep these in, because I really want to see them in full HD. Because I feel like this game deserves another spotlight. I mean, look what happened with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. It received very well for the Wii U, but when it released on the Nintendo Switch, it really got the praise that it truly deserved. But even if Yoshi's Woolly World never gets a Nintendo Switch port, I still think it's a really amazing game for the Wii U. Whether if you have this thing or the Nintendo 3DS, I highly recommend trying this out. It's definitely a game worth your time. But for the next few videos, I think I'm going to be trying to head to the more indie scene for a bit. I did a little poll a few days ago, and it looks like the winner for that was A Hat in Time. So the next time we'll be here, we'll be talking about that cult indie classic. But that'll do for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye!